Good afternoon. Welcome to the Monday afternoon update on what is now a Category 5 Hurricane Iota here. As always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding this system, please refer to your local weather office, your local officials, and the National Hurricane Center for all official advisories and information regarding the system, of which we will be discussing. Well, we have a Category 5 Hurricane Iota, as I mentioned earlier, and you can see that the storm is far better organized than it was yesterday, which is, very hard to believe that we are having a Category 5 hurricane this late in the year. This is actually the record latest Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic ever. So this is certainly a historic storm, and it is a very powerful hurricane. Recon is in there right now and is measuring a storm that is around sitting in between 920 and 917 millibars here. Recon just went in for a pass and found winds of about 150, 155 miles per hour, and will probably hold at a Category 5 hurricane, even though these winds are a little weaker than previous passes. But there's probably some area of Category 5 winds that will maintain the intensity here. Regardless, this is obviously a tragic situation for an area that was hit by a Category 4 hurricane not even 2 weeks ago. Remember, November 3rd was the landfall day for Hurricane Eta. It is November 16th, and we are having the same thing happen here. If you look at the infrared imagery, a prolonged shot of the infrared imagery here, you can see the storm kind of just gradually symmetrizing here as the convective core becomes much more circular here in recent satellite shots, and it has been kind of gradually doing this all day, and the eye has gradually been warming all day and becoming a little more circular here as time goes along. So this may be still strengthening just a little bit. This is approaching the highest intensity that it can possibly reach in this region here. So it's going to be very difficult for the storm to continue to intensify at the rate that it was intensifying last night. We had a pressure drop last night in 1 hour of 10 millibars here. So this has been a very quick intensification that has occurred, almost a historically high level of intensification that has occurred since last night. And no, there's not a whole lot in the way of this anymore. This is still, in a very perfect environment here. If we go out to the overall water vapor picture, you can see anticyclone is a little bit displaced. You can see kind of evidence of mid-level shear on the eastern side. Clearly, this is not affecting the system in any way, shape, or form in terms of its intensification. This has been able to intensify in the face of probably about 10-15 knots of mid-level shear coming out of the north and the east, as you can see the CDO kind of being flattened here on that northeastern side. But, obviously has not affected the system in any meaningful way here, as this is still embedded in a very favorable anticyclonic environment here. Poleward outflow channel extending now all the way into Cuba here, and you have equatorial outflow being extended now towards south of even Panama and Costa Rica here. So this will likely, not really change too much in intensity now as it approaches, and it's in the final hours of its approach towards the exact same area that Eta made landfall in almost 2 weeks ago. So this is very bad. If we look at the microwave imagery, this is the latest microwave imagery. It's a little bit old, but still representative of the core here. You can see a secondary band that tried to develop. I think that band has since merged with the inner core band here, and this has become a much larger band of intense convection here, which has allowed for the storm's eye to mature and clear, and the stadium effect to steepen here, if you will, with the eye temperature and overall composition of the inner core here. And this has been able to, briefly undergo some weakening and then re-strengthen according to satellite presentation here. So this is still a very healthy storm. This is, again, there's a little bit of evidence here of mid-level shear, as there's an absence of banding relative to the western side here, and there is, lightning primarily on the eastern 2/3 of the system, which is indicative of some mid-level shear that is impacting the system. But again, This is not substantial enough to warrant any weakening or any changes in the inner core structure. This is likely set in stone now for the next several hours. This is, it could intensify, plus or minus 5 miles per hour, but I don't think, that really matters at this point. This is already a catastrophically powerful hurricane that is historically strong and will be impacting this area in a historic fashion. This is not the only problem that we are dealing with this storm. You can see still this is moving a lot of moisture around it. There's a lot of clouds here that are capable of producing thunderstorms. And you remember what I said yesterday about these mountains in Honduras and Nicaragua here, that this mountain range in particular is able to wring out the moisture of any system that does come in here. And so there will likely be very high rainfall totals in this region here, in this region between central Honduras and central Nicaragua here. This entire area will likely be seeing 2 to 3 feet of rain on top of what they've already seen with Eta. And this area here in northern Nicaragua will also be, or northern Honduras will also be seeing 2 to 3 feet of rain here, according to precipitation forecasts that I cannot pull up at this time. This is very bad. This is as bad as it gets. There's not really much that this can do to be worse. So our thoughts are with you in Central America, and that's all I got on Iota. We're going to talk briefly about the area of interest that is also in the Western Caribbean that is kind of visible right now on satellite if we look hard enough. But if we kind of look at the overall shot of visible imagery here, you can see this area of convection that's kind of lingering behind Iota. It's not very much right now, but it will be present in this general vicinity for the next couple of days here, and it may be able to develop into a brief tropical cyclone here as it moves generally off to the west-southwest towards Costa Rica. And if we look at the GFS model, this is 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, or 12 a.m. tomorrow morning here. This is courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. You can see Iota here. This is now inland, and you can see this little area of vorticity in here that is left behind due to the banding of Iota. If we advance this, you can see that it does develop into a general kind of gyre of sorts of vorticity. So this is, it could develop here, and as we continue, you see it does gradually develop. This area, if we go back to the visible shot here, this general part of the South Central Caribbean has a lot of background vorticity in here. And so what that means essentially is that it's easier for storms to spin up, as there's not as much of a streamlined area of trade winds as you can see in the Central Caribbean. And if you kind of remove Iota out of the picture here, you can see that the winds are not as strong out of the west here, or out of the east in this part of the Caribbean, and it's able to kind of have it's easier for dents in the flow, the generally westerly flow, to occur. And so this would not be surprising to see if we had another storm try to develop here, and this would be still embedded in a fairly moist environment. This would be essentially uninhibited as it advances off to the west-southwest, and what would primarily be steering this is this very large surface high that has developed after a cold front here, and would be primarily steering this to the west-southwest, and it wouldn't be moving too quickly here. This is still, this is the 3-day point here, and then this is the 5-day point as it crosses the country of Costa Rica here. This is not moving very fast, and so it would have substantial time to maybe strengthen into a strong tropical storm, maybe a hurricane here. Still, have to watch where this exactly organizes or congeals even, as Iota will still be somewhere around here, and the banding, will be anywhere in this area of the South Central Caribbean / Southwestern Caribbean here. And this area is, climatologically speaking, always an area to watch in November. I know we've had a very, very tiring hurricane season, and you absolutely want it to be over, but we still do have things to watch here as time goes on. If we look at the upper level winds, this is Iota again making landfall here about 24 hours from now, 6 a.m. tomorrow. You can see Iota exits the picture and is still here, but there's not as much of a presence here. And you can see that overall anticyclonic flow returns over the southwestern, south central Caribbean here. This is generally an upper level ridge, and that supports the system that may be taking its place. If we go back to the water vapor imagery, you can actually see this anticyclonic flow that is developing here. This a general anticyclone over this region that goes beyond just Iota's anticyclone and upper anticyclonic outflow here. And so it's, it is possible, and the National Hurricane Center gives this kind of region here a 40% chance of development over the next 5 days. We may see those chances go up just a little bit. And if you are in Central America, I know it's hard to take your eyes off of this, but there could be something in here that impacts further south of where Iota is, and this region that I have circled needs to be preparing and maybe watching for something to develop here. That is all I have for you guys. If you're in Central America, please stay safe. This is as horrible of a situation as you can get, and reports out of the islands that have already been affected by Iota are not good, and we haven't even gotten reports out of Providencia Island, which received a direct hit earlier this morning from Iota's core, and I'm assuming that once we get reports in from those islands, it will be very, very bad. And I don't even want to imagine what's going to happen here near Puerto Cabezas here. So please stay safe. That's all I got for you guys now. Thanks for watching.